Welcome back to a late IHP show with your 5D mystic here, ready to chit-chat a little bit about this and that. So anybody who's new, 5D is Christ consciousness. It's the frequency of love. It's anyone who has the capacity to be a securely attached person, really, because you have to have the frequency of love. So if you still have abandonment wounds, childhood wounds, any of that stuff, that insecure, yeah, that's that fear stuff for talking to people about your emotions and thoughts. And then here's the deal, facade people, they like to keep the visceral stuff going on, and the ones who are insecure with punching bags, yes, they do that too. So they don't make good partners. They don't have each other's back. They actually make a lot of drama. It's why we got dramatic movies, and then just people continuing with a lot of lower frequency. So the difference is when you begin to perceive the expanded version of yourself, which will happen once you are navigating above the neutrality again and again and again. So there's a Zen master, he doesn't do it because he talks about emotions as laundry. And so what I'm talking to you about is the flow state, which neuroscientists let you in on. And our brain, when it's in a flow state, we go from having selflessness, timelessness, effortlessness, richness. There's a video where one of the many neuroscientists gets interviewed by Big Well or Big Thing. And as a person who has the flow state, integrated brain, when they mentioned what happens at the effortlessness part, I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense because of my expansion from Kundalini awakening to all the light bodies, rainbow body, all of it. Okay, so as a mystic, I have my own way of sharing that which you might have heard about already, and if you haven't, ask your questions. Always happy to answer, but I don't do it with dictionaries or encyclopedias or yesterday's news. I do it with Maria's subjective experience, and that's because, well, I mean, I like to have the basics. It's kind of like Johnny Depp in Pirates of the Caribbean, right? When they do we have a code, but it's really just guidelines. So only time I was really a perfectionist was when I was a teenager, because that's the adolescent brain. Then you start to grow up and you move out of black and white thinking, because that's what grown-ups, wait a minute, that's what securely attached, healthy self-worth. And that means people who don't do characterological distinctions or judgments. You don't cast a stone. You stay open-hearted. Okay, so those are people who have each other's back, and that's true love. Because you have a shirt on and you can offer a shirt to another. You don't have abandonment wounds. You don't have fear of abandonment from here, not the words. The words don't matter. And so today we talked about how a empowered, enlightened, divine feminine, and the reality is also empowered, enlightened, divine masculine, they will only want a healthy other, because that will be a person who knows they're irreplaceable, okay? And so in the case of the polysecure community, we enjoy having compersion. In the case of a polyamory that does not have secure attachment, there's masochism, upsetness, anxiety, a bunch of stuff. And obviously unhealthy self-worth means Diego's family. So it's codependent people who want to mesh and like, so that's not here. Also, what you don't find here is I learned how to make it on my own. And, you know, they all lied to me always. So I did have liars, my teenage boyfriend, all my friends, but I didn't feel that way. They're still my friends. He's not my boyfriend. Now we're still friends. And so am I friends with the woman who he did the last cheating with, but they stayed life companions. So this is what happens when you have healthy self-worth and you're an empowered human being. You don't be like, for the rest of your life and think they're shitty. Nobody's shitty. We all can be shitty. I can be shitty. In fact, I have a man who thinks that he taught me common courtesy when all I did was for consistent 3 years make him know I didn't want to be friends by doing nothing except for when you don't want to make a friend, what do? You don't engage with them. So the person frequents the same place. I made sure to maintain consistency, women, men, and days. And you all know the story, so I'm not going to share it again. Apparently, though, some people, they have said, you know, but you could be a little bit more easygoing. No, not really. I have healthy boundaries, and I'm very fascinated by the fact that you think that I should allow a person who has unhealthy boundaries to wiggle their way in when I consistently for 3 years, not 1 month, not 2 months, not even 3 months, no, 3 years. Do the math. 12 times 3, 36, if my math's correct. Oh, I don't find him rude. I can't insult the man. I mean, I don't even have pity because they are a conscious human being who's living their first 8 years of life and has decided that they think they know everything. Watch the man in a fancy suit use lack of imagination for evil and then get on screen and inform women why a man won't text us back. My regular listeners know the story like the back of their hand. Why is it women? Why is it men? Why is it theys? Let's say it all together. What will they feel 1 second after they have finished fucking the woman? Contempt. Then what else? Say it. I know you're going to memorize. Disgust. Towards who? Towards you. Towards us women. Remember it. It's towards us. And then shame. But we don't know where the shame goes. And we also didn't hear anything about therapists. So this dude gets on screen. Oh, he's not looking at you. He doesn't have the balls to look at you. You know why people don't look at each other? It's called compartmentalization, and that's because some of us have no trauma charges in our eyes because we have emotions Zen master, and others instead they shove it all down. So the minute they would begin to look at me, shit would begin to come up, and they would not know what the fuck is going on in their body. And I don't like to actually present it this way, but I have had confirmation, which is why a divine feminine can only be with empowered divine masculines and empowered divine feminines. But as I was trying to get to, so our oversoul always has our back when you have chosen to be yourself. That's the 5D frequency. Our partners always have our back too. And my entire oversoul, even without knowing everything though, okay, so there's things that happen, divine feminine won't know, but she will know one thing. Don't talk about my oversoul like energy vampires, dark auras. Stop being an asshole. You got broken up with, you don't need to be an asshole about it. There's no Lucifer to blame, evil, devil, demons. There's unresolved trauma. It's a whole different story. Please don't romanticize it. Thank you very much. We have Dr. Daniel Fox, Dr. Daniel Siegel, Bezel Vanderkolk, Stephen Porges, Janina Fisher, Patrick Tiahan. We got a bunch of people out there with a very clear mission. We can help, they can help people to get securely attached. We come next, holistic, or next to mindfulness practices, Reiki practitioner, Akashic record reader, tarot consulting, all of that comes next to and or after the good therapy. And so, ergo, you don't have tragedy with anyone. The only reason you have a twin flame journey group is because they're teenagers who need an identity and they found it. Show yourself, I'm dying to meet you. And they made it into, obviously, dramatic tragedy because their visceral is all over it. The yucky energy from their silverback times, and they like to be superheroes with supervillain capes and shadow self, and they don't go heal. They don't know they got a smudge of mustard, as Dr. Daniel Fox presents, that they're perpetuating their insecure, visceral, push-pull. It's nothing remotely near true love. They don't even have intimacy with their self yet, let alone with another. In fact, if they're lucky, they go to good therapy with Terry Real and Dr. Daniel Siegel, and they get to fuck with intimacy because they get to get bilaterally integrated and to get out of having any type of self-loathing, gut wrench, and torn apart and childhood trauma stuff. So the people who are caring about getting out of that, which is not knowing how to self-soothe, they're doing it with a good therapist. The ones who don't need that, we're building relationships. So when we have each other's back, we have each other's back. So this is a deal for a 5D mystic, divine feminine. I don't need you to have my back. By the time I got to my mid-20s, I saw all that I could see. By the time I was my 20-year-old, I knew there wasn't Lucifer. I was like, hey, God, I don't see him, and I don't see demons. And then I got clairs. And then I said, this is my human makeup. It's not about being anointed. And I met my twin flame 1, twin flame 2, twin flame 3, my oversoul, colleagues, soulmates, a bunch of people. And I began to have a bunch of traveling to my different dimensions and different places. I use Maria's words, not displaced, not lost. You know why? I grew up with God and I grew up with Jesus. So I didn't get in any kind of ego chit-chat because I learned about being humble and I learned about being a person who can forgive and who participates with my 2 little hands and my 2 little feet. I'm 4'9". So when things happen that you don't know what's going on, the channeler, the divine feminine here, will have a conversation with us, right? So I have my conversations, in fact, a lot of them. And one of them, I was like, okay, I had 3 milliseconds, but it was a funny conversation. So what I'm trying to say, though, is nobody didn't have my back. That part I knew because my gut tells me. So the questions I had, I asked that which is my guide, and I did get my answers. And the answers for some of those moments for any divine feminine will be clear. You will find out, you will find out, you will find out. Keep on processing that which comes up and that which comes sideways. And so luckily for those who have the inner growth mindset, we don't have an inner critic or an outer critic. So we're able to process that Zen master. Zen master, here, mindfulness practice for you. We're able to process the depths of our emotional sphere with our emotional sphere and not dampen it because we're ourselves. So Oversoul has our back. You know why? Because my divine masculines, the ones in the making, the ones who don't become, they're full-blown, doesn't matter. They all gave me, divine feminine, the opportunity to expand. And that's all, also divine feminines. The ones who have your authentic back, they have to have cojones or vaginas, whatever you want. That means independent, not it's really hard work to make a relationship work. You have to stick around. Sure, okay, yeah. Think you're codependent, you need Terreal, you need Patrick Tiahan, and you could use all of them to, okay, so I tell my women, I know you learned how to make it on your own, but just let him open the door. Let him open the door. So those people are not going to be here because they're completely in a 4D, 3D frequency. They're still listening and thinking like this lady and looking at Cinderella, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty for their Prince Charming. And then they have these really fancy ideas of how they're going to be protected from afar by someone. I'm laughing because, yes, that word protecting. Am I a damsel in distress? Did I need protection? I'm not really sure which fairy tale you're coming from. I live a human life. Don't you know what it means to be mindfully aware? And so that is an energetic imprint that you will know if you're an embodied divine masculine or divine feminine, which is why we only want those who are empowered, because anything else is a very small energy. And when you're insecure, you're clingy, you don't know how to leave me space, and you also don't know how to have my back because you're overbearing and you don't have a good gut. And that's because you have low self-esteem. You're an indirect communicator. You don't know how to be non-reactive, and your anger will get the best of you, and I will spot it. And now you're an unsafe partner to me because I don't need you to get into your sympathetic while we're wherever it is. I need you to stay in your ventral vagal state so that I know you're using a prefrontal cortex like I am, and that way we can make a team. So our Oversoul helps the divine feminine for sure, the embodied ones. Divine masculine, it's once they get their divine feminine online. So it's when they have a heart and they say, oh, I want intimacy and I want intelligence. And I know Lucifer is a fallen angel story, not the other way around. And also I know that we don't need to demonize people who have unresolved trauma. Please stop. So we don't need stories, the mystics know, and that's because we know of God and heaven. And we, again, really, if we need to use the story, we all know who wins. This is the whole part of where it always drives me out into my mind when I think of, one, spirituality, people wanting to prove spirituality. Two, when they're taking offense and getting upset at sciences, you have faith or not? They can't disprove it. Not in this lifetime. The future is going to be a little bit different, but they can't disprove to those of us who know the truth, because it's here that you have faith. It's not the words. And then it's here that you have, and it's not a voice. It's a feeling. Everyone of spirituality will know the feeling. It's a sound that has a vibration. It's a sensation. And it is one that is of grace, and it is of love, and it is of sweetness. It's not of anger, It is not of rage. It is not of vindictiveness. Those are small energies, and those are small frequencies that are part of an insecure body that is in a survival mode, which means your amygdala is on, which means you're not using your prefrontal cortex, which means you're not an integrated brain, which means you're not channeling in the way you think you are. You're a squirrel from Cusco land at best, who taps into a sphere of energy that the scientist can explain if we really must. That's why science, spirituality go together. So a person who has a counterpart is a person who has somebody who matches the brain of intelligence and the brain of a heart that is open, alignment and open, because that's when you're going to expand. And that's because you're non-reactive, so you're healthy, you're not fizzling out, you don't have low self-esteem, you don't think, oh, I'm going to get lost, she needs to let me open a door, he needs to do this. It's very disrespectful. We will not be appreciative. A 3-year-old will say, get the fuck out of my space right now, however that may look. So the people who know how to share, they know how to share because we are not looking for these. And that's when you're going to have each other's back, because nobody's fearing abandonment, rejection, shame, humiliation, injustice. So when you have a whole self, that is when you're going to know how it is to have true partnership. And that's because you're being you, and true love is you in that secure attachment, being able to be yourself and having each other's back. Again, the Oversoul, for the ones of you who know your Oversoul, you'll be expanding. You won't have questions. Your gut, if it's a whole self gut, with the capacity to put your implicit bias, all your stuff to the side, and say, okay, ego, take a step back. We have something we're dealing with. It's an unknown, unexpected, unwanted. Stay open heart, and you stay open-minded. I want to hear all the information. Even if I don't like it, it doesn't matter. I'm going to hear. Open the brain, open the brain, open the brain. Let me go with the flow. So you, with kind intention, you stay in awareness, you stay listening, you're mindfully aware, you're doing this mindfulness stuff and mindsight, and you're going to take in the information. And you're going to have an exploration, and so you're not going to project. And that's how you expand. So the true partners are people who expand each other, and for the Oversoul, they will expand the empowered divine feminine, divine masculine. And right now, luckily for us, we have a bunch of 5D frequency, healthy self-worth people out there. And that's why our communities are going to begin to come together here at IHP and elsewhere. It is thanks to attachment trauma researchers and therapists that people have been able to ground in secure attachment. Also, yes, the earth is in a 5D frequency, but those who have clairs, they're not all in the 5D frequency at all. They're very busy with mantles. So mantles don't move into expansion because they think they know everything, and they fit the identity. So just like the flat earthers, you got the twin flame journey people, then you got the ones say, I don't believe in it, it's not true, I don't believe you end up. So they're just doing all of that. What I can tell you, again, about the Oversoul is that if you're divine feminine and you're embodying the true divine feminine, you don't have questions. So I really don't need to tell you anything. As for divine masculines, they don't know. Even though I take that back, because one of the people that I know is a divine masculine of their Oversoul, and they did do a lot of shit. Yeah. So all of those who are not empowered, they don't have each other's back. They're vulnerable because they want each other to fulfill their childhood needs, and they don't notice it. So they're low self-esteem and direct communication, passive-aggressive. They're canceling each other. That's why people say, you lose people when you get spiritually awoken. You lose people when you get the kundalini. No, you don't lose people. You don't lose your ego. You do go through expansion, yes, but not in the way that you hear out there. But that's because they're doing tragedy instead of going to therapy. So they're preferring the story narratives to owning the core self, the relational, the narrative, and the solo self, to then be able to live true spirituality. But again, that'll be for another time. In the meantime, for our Oversoul, we get to support each other, have each other's back. And again, it's to help us be ourselves in a healthy self-worth way, and then to be smart and have fun and sit and watch the skies, and or maybe not, and just enjoy every day. Every day counts. We have our 24 hours, and that's about it. So what I can tell you that it's beautiful. The more of your oversoul you get to know, and clairs are really fun. And so I saw that they're starting to look into like lucid dreaming. I'm like, wow, that's fascinating. It's really nice to know they're looking into Reiki. I know we have some that really reject all of it, and they're calling all of us monsters and whatnot. But, you know, some people, they don't like what changes are there, that's all. But in the meantime, we're here for each other, and we'll be back with more. Having each other's back doesn't mean that we're going to be yelling in people's faces. It just means that we know the truth. People don't like change, and they don't have the capacity to know that sciences and spirituality come together, and that they don't disprove each other. That's not for us to do anything about, because that's for them to figure out if they want to get out of cognitive dissonance, structural dissociation, their first 8 years of life, unconscious, subconscious, their low self-esteem, and all of the insecure stuff, and their little boxing gloves, which don't do anything. For us, it's partners. We have each other's back. Even when we don't notice that we do, we still will look back and know we're expanding, and it's really fun. And that's where it's a wrap. We'll be back with more. Have a good one.